back in Toronto after racing Ironman Lake Placid on Sunday. I had a really great race. It's a race that I've wanted to do for quite a while, so I was really happy to finally have the opportunity to do it. I arrived in Lake Placid on Thursday. I was very fortunate to have a homestay with Rick. It was very generous to open up his home to Lisa and I, and it was an amazing location, really close to the swim start. On Friday morning, I got in a swim early in the morning just to get out on the lake about the same time where the race was going to start, to make sure that tinted goggles weren't going to be a problem and what the sun was going to be like. Also did a short ride. We had our pro meeting, and after that was really lucky to get the opportunity to volunteer at the Iron Kids race. Brent McMahon and I were holding the finish banner for the kids when they came through, and really awesome to see all the little kids just working really hard, big smiles on their face, having a great time. So really enjoyed that. On Saturday, it was just a lot of relaxing, making sure all the equipment was ready to go for Sunday. And then Sunday was race day. So it was going to be a non-wetsuit swim. So it's only the second non-wetsuit swim I've ever done. Eagleman earlier in the year was the other non-wetsuit swim I've done. So I would have liked to have gotten in some good swims in just my Dare to Try swim skin before the race, but Lake Ontario's been really cold. Even with a wetsuit, it's been chilly. So I didn't get an opportunity to put in any long swims in my swim skin, but on Saturday I'd done a swim in it, and it felt great. So I wasn't too concerned about that with the race. When the gun went off, the whole first loop of the swim was relatively uneventful. I ended up in a pack where it seemed like we were moving at a pretty good pace. When we came around for the second loop, it did get a little more interesting. It seemed like the tail end of the age group field had only just got into the water when we came around for our second loop, and really there were people scattered all across the lake. So our group really ended up just turning into much more of a line, and I think I was fourth in line, and I'm not sure who was on the front. I think I was just behind Matt Shanks, but I'm not sure who was on the front kind of guiding us through everybody. But the second loop I very much just focused on staying on Matt's feet, and I think Matt was focusing on staying on whoever's feet was in front of him, and whoever was at the front was really responsible for navigating us through all the age groupers there. But was really happy to get out of the swim in under an hour. Then when I got onto my bike, I really just kept reminding myself to just put my head down, go to work, and stay in control. I know that the course is challenging, especially the back half. So you can get to the 60K mark on each loop relatively quickly, but that last 30Ks where all the work is. I ended up riding the first 60K with a couple different guys. So it was with Matt Shanks for a little while. Was with Greg Close, Chad Holderbaum, and something I thought was kind of neat was we had a official moto with us the whole time to watch for drafting. So that's never something that I've experienced before, and I thought it was kind of neat. It was great to see a bunch of officials out there looking for drafting. From the 60K mark, that's where you turn to go up 86, and it's a pretty significant hill, and Chad and Greg just took off from me. So I knew that I wouldn't be able to keep up with them if I wanted to have any chance of running. So I just focused on riding my own race, and I did the next 120K all on my own. On the second loop, so the back 90K, my power did drop off a little bit. The time for my first loop was about 2 hours and 25 minutes, and for the second loop it was closer to 3 hours. And I did have a tough time holding on to my power, and I was coasting a lot more of the downhills than I was doing on the first loop, but was still relatively happy with a bike time around 4:55 on that course. And then when I got to the run, it was really just time to go to work. I wasn't quite sure where everybody was in front of me, but as I was running out of transition, a couple people told me that there were 3 or 4 guys that were just a couple minutes up the road from me. I probably left transition a little bit hot. I think my first kilometer was 3:39. It was definitely my fastest kilometer of the race. It's a pretty significant downhill, and you can beat up your legs quite a bit if you're running too fast. But after that, I was able to settle into a good pace. I started closing the gap on Chad, who was in front of me, when I was still feeling really good all the way down to the River Road turnaround. But once I got in, within about 10 seconds of him, that gap just stopped closing, and I was going through a really tough patch. I got the turnaround, I was almost on his heels, and then after that he started pulling out his advantage again, and that continued to grow until we got back into town. And when you get back into town, the hills that sucked, the hills that were really fast going down, they really suck when you have to go back up. And fortunately, I was feeling good at this point, so I was able to claw back all the time that I'd given up to Chad when we were running back into town, and was able to pass him there. Heading out onto the second loop, I still felt pretty good, and usually around 24 or 25K in an Ironman marathon's where my legs really start to break down. And I was lucky that I was pushing past that 28, 29, 30K, and I mean, hardly say that I felt fresh, but my form wasn't breaking down. I was still running relatively strong, and I wasn't sure when it was going to happen. I knew at some point the form would break down, but I was just hoping I'd be able to push it for as long as possible. And I was able to get to the far turnaround, which is about 31-ish kilometers into the course. Still running relatively well, and at that point I realized I had a gap of about I think it was about 2 minutes onto Chad, who was the next person behind me, and I just focused on doing what I needed to do in order to get to the finish line as best as possible. So my pace did drop off a little bit because I was trying to make my decent run form last for as long as possible. So the 420-ish that I was running earlier on in the race turned into more 440s at this point, and I was running really short on fuel, so at aid stations I was grabbing everything that I could. Usually I stick to just trying to get Coke, but I was taking Coke, I was taking water, I was taking Red Bull, I was taking Gatorade, anything that I could get my hands on, just to keep fueling myself. And I didn't really feel that my form really broke down until I got to about 36K in the marathon, and at that point it really is just gritting it out till the end. Had to go up those terrible hills one last time. It was a great feeling entering the Olympic Oval where the finish chute is and crossing the finish line in a time of 9:07. My run split was about 3 hours and 7 minutes, which is the fastest Ironman run that I've been able to put together. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who sent me messages of support both before and after the race. Also a big thanks to Skechers Performance Canada. I ran in the Go Meb Razors. They're my favorite shoes in the Skechers line. Also a thank you to Dare to Try. I use their swim skin. I also swim in their Challenge 4-speed wetsuit, and to Velofix for putting my bike together and making sure that everything was running smoothly. If you're going to be racing Lake Placid 70.3, or if you're looking at racing Ironman Lake Placid in the future, and you have any questions either about the course, the area, or anything about my race, feel free to send me an email or write your questions in the comments down below. Until next time, happy training.
Oh, this you crazy mother...